Having a culture is an important aspect of a community. It is a built structure that helps a people have a collective identity. But when it comes to an individual level, each person can choose what aspects of culture they can subscribe to and which ones they don't. Since it takes people to ensure the survival of culture, it is always changing and not static, and so are the people. In this season of Spotlight on the Pearl, we will explore what the cultures used to be before the influence of westernization and how they have changed over time to the present.
I'm called Ola Ambrose, the Prime Minister of Acholi. Now, who are the Acholi people? Not long ago, the name Acholi never existed. I think it is like many other tribes we hear today. Many of them never existed. The actual name Acholi, but the people were there. Acholi is a stock of a people from the mainstream Luo peoples that came down from the Nile, down south from the Nile, and occupied different spaces within much of East and Central Africa. Now, for the Acholi, from wherever they came from, history traces their origins from way back to the times of the Egyptian pharaohs, to the times of civilization across the river Euphrates and Tigris. You remember the civilization around Mesopotamia and into the civilization in Egypt. But because of many historical factors which we cannot go into now, these people were pushed down south the Nile, and that is why they are mainly the Nile. They are called the Nilotics. Nilotics primarily means the people of the Nile.
Like almost every tribe in Uganda and all over the African continent, the Acholi have a set of dances that represents their cultural values, and they take great pride in these dances.
We, the Acholi people, we have very many dances, very many. It's even more than 10 dances. One, we call it royal vola dance. That is a royal dance performed during when crowning in our a new king. And this royal dance is rarely performed outside because it is mainly for the respect we put on our king. That's why we call it a royal dance. Then this dance also again, we respect this dance because when there is no rain, sometimes also it brings rain very fast. So if you are moving with a royal thing, God also will appreciate. That's why rain will come and rain immediately after dancing that Bola dance. This is what we call pot dance. If a married woman being escorted to their newly husband, to the new home, if I'm to say, we choose young ladies that is the sister to that married girl. They escort that woman to his husband. Then they will be carrying a small pot on their head. You are seeing if you are performing the dance. Then it will show how our daughters and the husband is going to balance the life inside their family. Because there is a time for sorrow, there is a time for happiness. So if happiness comes, the pot is also still there. If sorrow also still there, you have not to run away. Third one is the Ajere. Ajere dance is a courtship dance, one of the courtship dance of our culture. But that courtship dance is also unique because if we are performing that dance, that is where even a young lady and a young boy get connected in this dance. Yeah. So they sing about you have to change your life. Without changing your life, you will not get connected to any girl or any boy. That is the meaning of our dance. Yeah. That's why there is also a part of which, if you see that boy and a girl being connected, they will connect themselves with this an act called a lion. They grab their neck, they pull forward, then they continue. Thereafter they go back. Denge dance. This dance here is performed by young ladies only. The boys will be drumming, blowing the pan pipe, and playing the calabash. The young ladies show how they are fit, physically fit. Denge is originated from a place called Palabek in Lamont district some years ago.
Music and dance were not only seen as a form of entertainment, but a channel for the values of society to be passed on and to be upheld. When children came of age, these values were shared to them. But how was this done in the olden days, before the influence of Western culture? Courtship was never taken lightly, as it was the defining step of whether one would get married or not. However, the process, like other cultural aspects, underwent different transformations.
Acholi gangwa kare jane no pe bere kira kompere wunu tika time kira dan tika time kira tini ini kiel ko nyute gang kunu kame no nyako no tie ko mo ko mi nge dan ke ruate chup ini no nyako ngar man be nyako tie ko nge gangi kira wa gangi muken lu diro chal babana kira bola dit la wore kalim la wore ka o kunu neno le ma ku mo no ti gan kan be ma de mira jaga tini ne no kai wa don lo ko ye kingi au poyo nya pa la remini kero gang wa ki woni in ko che kalim la rema ka chan ke te gine bueno ke la rema oro la tini ku we ke o ku ne ni te wa tini no gi mo tie ye ka tini o lo bedo ne nya mo do yo ren ni o lo ka ne no wara wa jana ni donc la distra de wa ki nya ni wa ya wine nya le e ki ga wuru poy ma de yo nya no pore ki nya ne kire be yo na ye chu mo mo ario ka in pe la diero en ka in la diero long chu du ario de no lo ki ma be ado ngeno ye ti ju pa wuru yi do nga yu bo lim yam jono no jan te dan ka ko nyu ki gagi ngi meno danu cha ko nyume ki lak liech ngi lak liech dan bu cha ko nyume ki kweri magi luoni kweri mari kelo yimbe no kwantero danu cha ko no dien ideal mo dan lo ti ka me do wel nyum che ma lo wole chu do be pin yi ga cho ka ma diet wuri me ka chu do ka be pin chi gi na no ni nyum dong ba ti ka yelo de wati ma ngom gi be meeting ma diet for wa pa yera yi ka ma long blok pe ti ka bin ruot me atiak ma ye lia wai ni atam ni ba teno nyum we ga nyero che ka cho me gi nyum gi dia di ario inu dong ka gi che ka nyum en dia ario en ka ka kulu pa nya ko gi cho ka gi che ku yo ga wu ma pol gi che ku ka do ko wat ka nyute we gi ngene ni nya ju ba ko ni che ka cho ba wel.
All this information was passed down usually at the Wang Oo, which is to be held every evening. Wang Oo was a traditional ritual where the family gathered around the fire in their homestead to discuss various issues ranging from the day's events to storytelling and reinforcing discipline and respect, and above all, passing down the cultural values to the next generation. At the Wang Oo, every single member of the family gathered around one fire. Men, women, and children.
Cái quay Wang Oo nó cái tiêu đul cái kia cái bồ lục can chỉ mọc cái mai cả cha cái bị mọc mai để Wang Oo nó đúc đi can nó guar cha can ở tại chỗ à cha này ở tại pì nó cái đá con này ở đông cái đá con này chứ cái kia Wang Oo cái kia này cái mọc mai chỉ ta cái đá quanh beru nó cái đẹp cái ta chọn này tia nó cái tia đẹp đá cái chỗ à thì đẹp cái kia là cái nhung đá cái pì thì đẹp cái kia nhung đá ngày bữa thì đẹp cái kia nhung Wang Oo ấy đông nó
kia là bên cái trà mới này
cái gua đó phải đá nó mà chọn nó quẹt cái kia cũng cả này có phải chia cái chọc cái có quẹt này cái này nó cái chọc phải giờ chui lên mà chọn mà cái đồng ngắt ở bên nhau tìm một cái nào ra vậy cái nè cái cây nhau đồng
Tiang nó cái ốp mai Wang Oo yên mà tên mình đi thì cháu chỉ cái Wang Oo tên biết cái tên yên mà mình mới tìm yên mà in tên yên mà tên này yên ya kan mình mà kia ra mà vuột cái chiều vuột cái mình biết cái chiều đồng cái cối mà tẹt miền bên này Wang Oo bên á cái yên đắc mà kia ra đi cái nuôi cái tiền đồng nè còn cái chim luôn ngày lọc cái em mẹ cái cát pin mà đan quen tiền cháu cái lọc pin cái lọ yên đắc mà em có yên mà gopa có yên mà giọt có yên ngà tên giọt cái này
cái quá gì vì về
tên mẹ cái giọt cái chiếc mà tẹt
em bây giờ đông cái đó có yêu đó nó cái cái quạt trao cái này nhìn mình phô chẹt cái chứ cái kêu nó nhìn mò cái nguyên cái cay em mà nó phút cái kêu càng kêu nhau quán nó tiền này quen cái kêu cái mi đông nhìn mua cái rẻ từ đó đông chắc cái kêu nhau cái cha luộc bởi đông chắc cái kêu nó buôn nó tiền nó bệt của man quán em này nè quán nó thì này quán trên của bệt là bệt của mai em nó vào cầm nó bên nó cái Wang Oo cái bè Wang Oo chọn nó đã cho họ bị con nghề cái cá phần gà là chia cái Wang Oo với cái vậy cho gang cái trà nó cho lá cái cùi vậy này mang cái cô mẹ đi ra mang pe chặt ấy của nó có nhập vào ngày mà uống nó war can cái là mì rồi này nhập vào ngày nó luôn này ini quạt vào cái cô mẹ quạt nó chặt cái công man ini quạt cái ini mẹ nó mà nó quạt cái bể trên quay này quạt cái nó quạt mẹ này quỳ vào bể đặt quay pa mà nó chứ em nó đừng quạt kia thế mà ta rồi quạt cái bể đi em nó kia là Wang Oo chọn nó coi như bị cái đàn không.
Wang Oo was the bond that not only kept the community together, but also brought the family closer to each other, not only at a physical level, but also a social, economic, and emotional level.
families were very big because if I'm the head of my family, all my children would be around me within that homestay. One boy would be putting his house on the other side, another one over there, but within the same area. There was a lot of cohesion in the family.
It was important for a family to have a strong bond because this translated into society and reflected how the community would live. The culture of the Acholi is built on community living, and they uphold collective and communal living as a strong value.
There's so much belief in the fact that you cannot live your life alone. You have to live with all the elements that influence who you are. That's why the element of collectivization, collectiveness, is so paramount in our actual life. Our belief system is so hinged on honesty and truth, and that we believe that every situation, every circumstance, everything always deserves a second chance, you see. And that's why we promote so much in terms of reconciliation, and our justice system is built on reconciliation. It's more restorative in nature, and that we believe that no action by an individual is his own action. It's a collective action. So if you commit a crime, it is a collective guilt of your people.
Most of our crimes are addressed as a collective position of a people, of a family, of a sub-clan, or a chiefdom. I could be, even let me just use the word stupid or mean. I may abuse you or say mean when I say you're stupid. In actually, it's not going to be looked at as lightly as that. My family is going to be called to order. Perhaps, yes, I abused you, but perhaps my family will be told they're failing to educate me. They're failing to culture me through good manners. So it was extremely very rare that a crime actually is a crime of an individual. Almost all crimes becomes a collective responsibility. And resolving it also requires a collective responsibility.
This can best be represented through the tradition of Mato Oput. It is the reconciliation and justice system that the Acholi practice and still practice today as a mechanism to restore relationships and correct violations done, for example, murder. Mato Oput directly translates into drinking Oput. Oput is a tree with very bitter roots that the two parties that were conflicting had to drink. The bitter herb was symbolic of the bitter crime committed and how the two conflicting parties should put the bitter experience from the crime behind them and move forward, trying to ensure that this bitter crime never happens again. A recent example of how the Mato Oput was practiced was after some of the rebels who were child soldiers during the Lord Resistance Army returned, they were reconciled into the community. Some people were against this, and some were for it. However, it was upheld by the leaders of the community because it is a strong part of the culture of the Acholi people. The traditional practices of Wang Oo and Mato Oput were not the only examples showing communal living among the Acholi people.
Hunting was organized seasonally. That communal hunting was done after we had what they call Timle. Timle, hunting ground. And in Acholi here, we had quite a number of Timle. Like, for example, Timpamira. That is the hunting ground of Amira. Amira is the man who was in charge of that hunting ground. In this particular case, Amira was my grandparent. So his Timle is in Nwayadea. So when they realized that there are many animals which are bred in that place, they organize. But they have to carry out certain ceremonies so that when they go there, they don't get, accidents. So they go, and then they come back with meat. When they come back with meat, they have to offer the meat before the shrine. Every home had a shrine where they believe there is their God. So you have to offer the meat, the shrine, and then everybody eats. But that was done very occasionally, depending on whether the animals are multiplied in a particular hunting area or not. But the day-to-day hunting was there. If you find the footmarks of an animal, when you are visiting your garden, it has rained, you find the footmark of an animal, and it has entered the grass, then you know the animal is within that area. The person who finds the footstep of the animal now makes an alarm. Other people know there is something to go and trap. So they bring nets. So these men who has found the mark of the animal has some idea where the animal is. So they covered an area with nets. The other side maybe, you cover the other side with nets. Then you start shouting from here, beating the bush and so on, making ululations. Then the animal will run towards that direction. Then it is trapped in the net. It is speared, brought home. This one, I think, still takes place in some remote villages in the rural areas.
As mentioned earlier, culture is maintained by people and is a collective identity of the people, but not everyone subscribes to it. The Acholi culture promotes forgiveness and reintegration of wrongdoers back into society, but on an individual level, not everyone agrees or practices that cultural aspect. The Acholi culture demands is built on virtues of honesty and requires its people to be direct and straightforward to the point. However, again, on an individual level, not every Acholi you will meet will be direct in their interactions. Why? Because culture is a collective identity of a people. But to have a better understanding of an individual, one has to do that on a personal level. Culture is not static. Culture keeps changing, and it will continue to do so in the future as well.